In the next few hours, a billionaire's marriage would collapse, his empire would burn, and a truth buried for decades would finally demand payment, with interest. The call came at 2 a.m., 3 days after the arrests. The station phone rang. A woman's voice, frantic, broken. "Please, I need to see my son, Chukwudi Okonkwo. Please, I heard he was arrested." The officer on duty was tired. "Visiting hours are tomorrow, Ma." "Please," she begged. "I haven't slept. I need to know he's alive." Something in her desperation moved him. "All right, come now, but just 10 minutes. Ngozi arrived looking like a ghost, thin, worn, 25 years of struggle carved into her face. She'd aged twice as fast as the years had passed. They led her to the holding cells. When she saw Chukwudi behind the bars, something inside her shattered completely. "My son," she sobbed. "My baby." Chukwudi turned away. "Go home, Mama." "How did this happen? How did we get here?" "You know how," his voice cracked. "You worked yourself to death for a man who never even looked back." The officer stepped closer. "Ma, please, calm down." But Ngozi couldn't stop. 25 years of silence was breaking. "You don't understand. His father could have prevented all this." "His father is dead," the officer said, checking the file. "No!" The word exploded from her. I lied to protect him. His father is alive." The room went silent. "Who?" the officer demanded. Ngozi's whole body was shaking. She'd kept this secret for so long, protected it, buried it. But watching her son behind bars, watching the end of the road that started with one man's cowardice, she couldn't hold it anymore. "Mr. Adetokunbo," she whispered. "The man he robbed, the man who wanted him dead before he was born, the man who threw money at me and told me to erase his mistake." The officer's pen stopped mid-note. "What did you say?" And then Ngozi collapsed to her knees, weeping, and the truth she'd buried for 25 years spilled out like water from a broken dam. Every detail, the affair, the pregnancy, the restaurant meeting, the envelope, the threat, the years of silence, the years of suffering. "He robbed his own father," she sobbed, "and he didn't even know it." In his cell, Chukwudi stood frozen, staring at his mother, processing words that were rewriting his entire existence. "What?" he whispered. "What are you saying?" "I'm sorry," Ngozi cried. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if you knew, the hatred would destroy you. But I was wrong. The not knowing destroyed you anyway." The officer called his superior immediately. Within the hour, the detective who'd been handling the case arrived. He questioned Ngozi for 2 hours, took detailed notes, verified dates, cross-referenced information. Then he made a call. "Sir," he said into the phone, "we need Mr. Adetokunbo to come back to the station, immediately, and tell him to bring his lawyer." Mr. Adetokunbo arrived at 6 a.m., disheveled and confused. His lawyer walked beside him, already threatening lawsuits for harassment. But when the detective explained why he'd been called, the lawyer went quiet. "Sir, we need you to submit to a DNA test." Mr. Adetokunbo's face went white. "A what?" "The suspect's mother has made allegations, serious allegations, that you are the biological father of Chukwudi Okonkwo, that you had an affair with her 25 years ago and abandoned the resulting child." That's ridiculous. I don't even know who." "Her name is Ngozi Okonkwo. She worked at your company in 1999. She's given us detailed information about your relationship that we're currently verifying." The floor dropped from under him. "I want to speak to her," he said, his voice barely audible. That can be arranged after the DNA test. They took him to a medical room, swabbed his cheek. He sat there like a man already convicted, because deep down, he'd known. Since that moment in the interrogation room, since he'd looked into Chukwudi's eyes, he'd known. The test would only confirm what his heart had already screamed. 3 days later, the results came back. 99.9% probability of paternity. The detective sat across from Mr. Adetokunbo in the same interrogation room where he'd faced Chukwudi. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. "Sir, I have to ask, did you know?" Mr. Adetokunbo couldn't speak, couldn't move. He just sat there, staring at the paper that proved his son had broken into his house, held him at gunpoint, and he hadn't even recognized him. "Sir, I suspected," he finally whispered. "When I saw him, I suspected, but I didn't want to know." "Why not?" "Because then I'd have to face what I'd done." The detective leaned back. "Sir, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen bad men, truly bad men. But what you did," he shook his head. "You created a child and erased him. You had the power to change his life, and you chose to pretend he didn't exist. And now that child is facing years in prison for robbing the father who abandoned him. That's not just cruel, sir. That's biblical." Mr. Adetokunbo closed his eyes. What happens now? Now the story leaks, because something this big can't stay contained. By tomorrow, all of Lagos will know. Your abandoned son robbed your mansion. The press will eat this alive. "Can I see him? Please, I need to see him." The detective considered this, then nodded. "Follow me." They brought Chukwudi to a private room. No handcuffs this time, just a table, 2 chairs, father and son. For a long moment, neither spoke. "So it's true," Chukwudi finally said. His voice was hollow. I'm your father, yes. Don't call yourself that. Fathers raise their children. You're just the man whose blood I share." Mr. Adetokunbo flinched. "You're right. You're absolutely right." "Why?" Chukwudi's voice cracked. "Why did you throw us away?" "I was afraid. I was selfish. I thought my reputation mattered more than your life. And now, does it still matter more?" Mr. Adetokunbo looked at his son, really looked at him, at the man he'd become despite everything, because of everything. "No," he whispered. "Nothing matters more than this moment. Nothing matters more than telling you I'm sorry, that I was wrong, that you deserved better, that your mother deserved better. Sorry doesn't change anything." "I know, but it's all I have." Chukwudi stood. "I robbed your house because I needed money, not because I knew you were my father. Mama never told me. I found out 3 days ago, in a cell, listening to her confess to strangers." His eyes were wet. "Do you understand what that's like? To learn your father exists and is a billionaire while you're wearing handcuffs?" "Chukwudi—" "I didn't need your money," Chukwudi said quietly. "I needed your name. I needed to know I belonged somewhere, that I mattered to someone." He moved toward the door. "But I'll survive this, because that's what she taught me. To survive what you couldn't be bothered to face." He paused at the door, hand on the handle. "What happens now?" Mr. Adetokunbo asked, echoing the detective's question. Chukwudi looked back. Now I serve my time. I pay for my crimes. And when I get out, I become the father you never were." His voice cracked. "Because someone has to break this curse." The door closed. Mr. Adetokunbo sat alone in that room until the sun came up. The story leaked within 24 hours. Every newspaper, every blog, every television screen in Lagos, every radio station, every street corner conversation. Mr. Adetokunbo's phone exploded with calls, reporters at his gates, cameras, microphones, questions shouted like accusations. Felicia stood in their bedroom, holding a tablet displaying the news, her hands trembling with rage and betrayal. "Tell me it's a lie," she whispered. He couldn't speak. "Tell me you didn't abandon a child. Tell me you didn't threaten a woman. Tell me our entire marriage isn't built on deception." "Felicia, it was 25 years ago. I was different. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" Her voice was ice. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You created a human being and erased him. You let him grow up in poverty while we lived like this." She gestured at the opulence surrounding them. "While I praised you, while I defended you, while I stood beside you in church and smiled at your donations, while I loved you. I'm still the same man." "No," she cut him off, her voice breaking. "I never knew the man I married. I loved a ghost, a performance, a lie." She dropped the tablet on the bed. On the screen was a photo of Chukwudi being led into court, and beside it, an old photo of young Mr. Adetokunbo. The resemblance was undeniable. "Look at him," she said. "He has your eyes, your nose. He looks more like you than our own son does. And you left him to rot. What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. There's nothing you can say that will fix this. The only question now is, who else have you lied to? What other secrets are buried?" The divorce papers came 2 weeks later. His business partners distanced themselves within days. Investors pulled out. Board members resigned. The foundation that bore his name issued a statement removing him from leadership. The church where he'd been an elder for 15 years quietly erased his name from the website. His children, grown now with families of their own, changed their surnames. Told reporters they'd been deceived too. Within 3 months, the empire that took 40 years to build crumbled like sand. If you believe karma never forgets an address, subscribe now. 3 years passed. The seasons changed. Lagos kept moving, the way cities do, swallowing scandals and spitting out new ones. But some stories don't fade. Some stories become parables. Ngozi found peace, not wealth, not fame, peace. Women's organizations supported her. She started speaking at events about single motherhood and abandonment. Her story gave other women courage to speak their truths. She became an advocate, a voice for the silenced. Her pain transformed into purpose. "I don't regret keeping him," she told audiences. "I regret believing I had to face it alone. I regret the silence that nearly destroyed us both." Chukwudi served his sentence. 4 years in Kirikiri maximum security prison. But something happened behind those walls, something unexpected. He got his degree, studied law through a correspondence program, read every book he could find, attended every rehabilitation program offered. He wrote to his mother every week, and every letter ended the same way. "Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for showing me that love doesn't need wealth to be real." In the 3rd year, a legal aid organization took notice of his case. They saw the layers of injustice. A young man driven to crime by abandonment and poverty. They filed appeals, argued for reduced sentencing based on circumstantial factors. The judge, reading the full story, reduced his sentence by 2 years. When Chukwudi walked out of prison at age 28, Ngozi was waiting at the gates. She looked different, stronger. Her hair was graying, but her eyes were clear. They held each other for a long time. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "I'm sorry I put you through this." "No," she pulled back, gripping his shoulders. "You survived. That's all that matters. You survived, and now you'll thrive." He did. He interned at a legal clinic, passed the bar exam on his second try, started defending people who couldn't defend themselves, young men like he'd been, forgotten children of forgotten affairs, people the system had discarded. He never changed his surname to Adetokunbo. He kept Okonkwo, his mother's name, the name that meant something. Mr. Adetokunbo lived in a modest two-bedroom apartment in Yaba, his fortune gone, his name tarnished, his family scattered, the mansion in Banana Island sold to pay debts and legal fees. But something strange happened in his humbling, something he didn't expect. He started volunteering at a youth center in Ajagunle, the same slum where his son grew up, where Ngozi had raised Chukwudi alone. He mentored boys without fathers, listened to their anger, their pain, their questions about men who vanished. Not for publicity. The cameras were gone. Not for redemption. That wasn't possible. But because it was the only way he could breathe without suffocating on regret. The boys didn't know who he was at first, just another old man trying to help. But eventually, someone recognized him. Word spread. The billionaire who fell, the father who abandoned his son. Some boys left the program, refused to be taught by a hypocrite. Others stayed, because broken people understand broken people. One evening, a 16-year-old boy approached him after a session. "Mr. Adetokunbo, is the story true about your son?" He could have lied, deflected, but he'd done that for 25 years, and it had cost him everything. "Yes," he said quietly, "every word." "Why did you do it?" "Fear, selfishness, pride. I thought my comfort mattered more than his life." The boy considered this. "Do you still think that?" "No, but realizing I was wrong doesn't undo the damage. It just means I spend the rest of my life trying to warn others not to make the same choice." The boy nodded slowly, then walked away. Mr. Adetokunbo never remarried. Felicia moved to London with their younger children. They sent him a card on his birthday, nothing more. The relationship was cordial, distant, dead. He wrote letters to Chukwudi every month, long letters apologizing, explaining, asking nothing in return. He never sent them, just wrote them, folded them, kept them in a drawer, because some apologies can't be delivered. Some wounds can't be healed. Some relationships can't be rebuilt. They can only be mourned. 4 years after the robbery, on a random Tuesday afternoon, Mr. Adetokunbo was leaving the youth center when he saw a man standing across the street. Tall, confident, wearing a simple suit. Chukwudi. They stared at each other across the Lagos traffic. Horns blaring, people rushing, the city moving around them. Chukwudi didn't cross the street, didn't wave, didn't smile, but he nodded. Once, a small, almost imperceptible acknowledgement. Mr. Adetokunbo nodded back, and then Chukwudi turned and walked away. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't a happy ending. But it was something. An acknowledgement that they both existed, that the past had happened, that they were both trying, in their own ways, to be better than their worst moments. Some endings aren't happy. They're just complete. Because this story was never about revenge. It was about consequence, about the seeds we plant in darkness that grow into forests of pain, about the lies we tell ourselves until the truth shows up with handcuffs. Mr. Adetokunbo thought burying the truth would protect his legacy, but the truth waited and returned with a loaded gun. So I want to ask you, what would you have done if you were Ngozi? Would you have taken the money and disappeared? Would you have kept the child and faced the struggle? Or would you have found another way? And here's the harder question. If you were Mr. Adetokunbo, at what point would you have had the courage to tell the truth? Comment your answers below. And if you believe stories like this matter, if you believe we need to talk about the real cost of our choices, hit that subscribe button. Because every week, we bring you true-to-life African stories that challenge, inspire, and remind us that karma is never late. It's just a patient. Thank you for watching, and remember, the truth always comes home. The only question is whether you'll open the door or wait for it to break it down.